Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Basement Arcana Behind the Screens. We are here with another installment of Session 0. This time we're going to be talking about world building.
I'm Hooey, your not-so-average DM.
And I'm Skip. And it's been so hot today that when I go home and take a shower, I'm going to have to peel my underpants off like a string cheese wrapper. Let's go! So, you want to be a DM? You think you're good? Now, you got to build a world, right? You got to put all that shit together.
It's not easy.
It ain't easy. You want to... that's because you're a homebrew DM. GM. Whatever game you're playing.
You feel to...
Yeah. So, there's a couple schools of thought here when it comes to putting together a world. There's the top-down.
Top-down.
Yep. Where what you're doing is you decide you have a world that you want to work within. And then you kind of focus narrower and narrower into the places that you want
the underworkings of the actual, like all the way down to the actual,
minutia,
syndicates, like small underground thieves, everything like that. You work your way from what is the overarching, big bad or end goal of your campaign.
So you go from there. You pick your setting. What is this world? And you work down to, all right, what part of this world does this story take place? I mean, it could expand across the entire world, but where are you going to start it? Which region? Are you going to start it in the desert? Are you going to start it maybe on a ship in the ocean? Are you going to start it in the mountains? What's going on there? Beyond that, you're going to shrink it down to cities.
So, literally, top from bottom.
Yeah.
You start at the biggest thing, overarching thing in your story, and work your way to the most minute things. Whereas the other is the bottom up.
Correct.
Where you're going to start from the faction that you feel passionate about. You know, the syndicate, you start from the minute things, the little tiny towns, and work your way up to the villages and cities, all the way up to your like the big bad.
Yeah. You might have so top down, you might have your big bad that you've thought about the entire time. You're like, oh man, I got this great idea for a series of elementals that have taken over the top of a mountain, and it's fire elementals, and they're just spewing. They're creating a volcano, spewing just ash and debris over towns, and you sort of shrink it down from there.
How did that affect the cities, villages, and everything outside of that?
The bottom up, you might have your players venture out from an adventure guild and say, well, kind of like what we did in yours. We started off inspecting like a haunted forest or something along those lines,
and you made your way back to the town. And made your way
back, and then
ventured further out.
Yeah, and then kept going that way. And sometimes, I know for myself, it's kind of a mixture between the two, where I started out with this big world that was created, this continent that was created by a meteor impact like generations ago and millennia ago.
Which created the sea that was
the sea in the center, and the mountains around the edge of that, and all the little islands around there. And with the campaign that I was running with you guys, I came up with Hullhelm. That's where you guys started, right on a peninsula at one of the southern points of the landmass in the crater.
Yep.
Right? But outside of that, it was you guys would venture off, and I'm like, well, I don't really know what's beyond Hull Helm, so I guess we'll figure that out. So it's kind of, you can kind of mix and match. You don't
always have to have everything fleshed out from day one.
No. And I guarantee you won't.
You won't, and you're going to, it's letting the party kind of help build your world is always a great idea, because I mean, you can build this immaculate scenario, world, situation, everything, and your party will royally mess it up. And going to, instead of doing what they were supposed to do, which we spoke on in our railroading kind of situation, where you wanted them to do one thing, they didn't do it, so you forced them into it.
I don't do that.
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
No, never.
But they'll get into those situations, and sometimes it's best to just ride with it. And that can really help in a bottom-up kind of situation where you can really build your world off of those decisions that your party made in early kind of, just like session 1, session 2. Like, there may be something that is key in those episodes that can spark something in your brain that really just sets you off.
And a lot of times, especially with people say your failures create the most interesting stories. Sometimes the adventures that your players want to go on, like you said, kind of spark interesting detours that you wouldn't have expected.
No, and it's great for both backstory building and just main story building all in itself.
And it, again, helps create your world, and then you can keep a map on the side, right? Mm-hmm. And then just kind of pinpoint in these areas these new these new places that sort of spring up out of nothing.
Yeah, and I think that kind of rolls us into our next topic was in world building is actually getting your regions together, like understanding where you want to have your snowier regions, your forested regions, kind of lake district-y kind of deals.
And I'm gonna point out too that if you're not a geologist and you didn't fucking study geology and all that stuff, Ben, I just want to let you know that people can Tolkien these, right? Maps, they don't have to be scientifically accurate, correct? Right?
And I will say this.
Run into 2 oceans at the same time.
It doesn't have to be a river. Maybe it's just some sort of landmass that's separated by...
teeny tiny little titles.
Hey! It's only teeny tiny because it's an aerial view of a continent. God damn. It's an aerial view.
I am a geologist by degree. I got a geology degree. And I think my world may be the most ungeologist
fucking thank you
thing ever. And I didn't even really think about it. I was just like, I thought about it as a fantasy, and I was like, this world would look cool.
That's funny. Funny how fantasy works.
Yeah, it is. And it's a beautiful thing. But on that, regions. I just decided one day that I was like, I'm going to throw my snowy region up here. My forested region here, my plains region over there, and my kind of lush, marshy, flourished version on the bottom.
Yeah.
Just decided that's what I wanted to do. And I personally started with my overall world first.
Yeah.
I started with just like, I'm going to put the snowy area here, this here, there, that there, and this down here. And then I filled everything in story and background-wise after.
Kind of reminds me of like an Avatar sort of thing. Like, we're over here, and that's the Fire Nation.
It really is. Now that you say that, it's true. Like, I kind of put like the Fire Nation up here, the Ice Nation up here, the Earth Nation down there, and
Air Boys.
Air Boys, yeah, there you go. The other ones down there.
The others. And moving on from the regions, we're kind of getting into cities. So when you get down to the nitty gritty of the city, rhyming on the fly, you kind of have to. You're going to get a lot of questions about how your city's laid out, and it doesn't necessarily have to be laid out in any sort of static situation, right? If you have a general idea of where you want to place things, that's okay, but you're going to get questions about the city's government, how they're run, whether it's like a mayoral thing, or there's like a tribunal, or it's some sort of monarchy in a kingdom. You're going to get all those questions, but you're also going to want to figure out what kind of taverns and inns and stables and anything along those lines are going to be questions that your party and players are going to
ask right off the rip. They're going to find a little old lady. They're going to find a guard. They're going to ask him, hey, where's the best place for us to sleep for the night? What's the most high class versus low class kind of inn? And I mean, this is a great opportunity for you in your world building to say, hey, okay, I'll make a low, middle, high class inn.
Yeah, Talila's bed knobs and hot dogs right on the corner.
You never know. They might want to go there because they just don't feel like spending the gold. You got some cheapskates in your party. Who knows? But it's really great to just lay a little bit of groundwork for some of the major towns and cities around where you center your party starting. And it leaves you time to okay, they're not going to get here for a while at least, so I can build up the factions and everything there and the inns. But really start with inns, blacksmiths,
armories,
because your party, anybody playing D&D for the first time or even multiple times, they're going to say, hey, where's the blacksmith?
Where can I get a health potion?
Where can I get a health potion? Make up some herbalists. Build a little backstory around maybe the owner by itself. You can make up the employees at the time that they arrive. I mean, it's not simple enough, but it is simple enough.
Have a bunch of names.
Yeah, just write up names on a piece of paper.
Just write up a bunch. What I'll do is I have color coded 3x5 cards. Mm-hmm. Right, and they come in a pack of a bunch of different colors. I think I use yellow for NPC names. I'll use red for individual NPCs and information about those NPCs. Green is, I think I use that for color doesn't matter at this point. Another color used for
whatever you feel that color
businesses, right? Names for businesses, and you could go along that way. It's just something that you're gonna need names for.
There's really nothing worse than a player asking you the name of an NPC and you come up with Madurk. His name's Madurk, and they're like, Madurk? You asked me on the spot. I'm in the middle of explaining something, and you asked me. I'm gonna come up with a horrible name.
Yeah, and then when they're asked to go find someone and they need his help, they're going to be like, well, let's go check out Madurk. Can I show you Madurk?
Or my Kuns. My Kuns. Yeah, horrible. His name's Mick, by the way, in the future.
Good God. It gets hairy in those situations.
It gets hairy in these situations.
Madurk gets hairy.
Anyway.
So have all that shit situated. As far as underground syndicates and shit like that, it's always good to have some sort of thieves guild or sneaky snake operation.
It doesn't even have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be something that's going to carry on through your whole story. Mm-hmm. But just have a little thieves guild, a group of bandits that just happen to be causing a little bit of havoc in the town at times.
In my world, I've got... it was meant to be a part of the bigger story, at least in that first campaign that I had you guys in, the Black Tide Watch. Which is essentially a group of smugglers and pirates that are well known and kind of feared across the continent.
Yeah, and have come up a few times.
Yeah, even in this campaign, they were smuggling mage children.
Yeah, mage children, and it made for great story building on our half, because I can point out a few people that were like, we have to concentrate on them. We have to figure out what they're doing.
But did they?
No, not at all. I mean, But I mean,
No, that's
in
beside the point, though.
my campaign, we have the Falsehood.
Yep.
And they're a syndicate that is more of a they take in orphans that have been left behind. And I mean, I don't want to give too much away because he's part of it. But they're a group of thieves and assassins that try to take from. They're like
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood. Yeah, they take from the rich and give to the poor, and they take in. They're very
Take from the rich and give it to the criminally insane.
Yeah, exactly. A few of them in a few food fights in that session.
Yeah, but that
two.
was fun.
That was
food
great.
fights.
It makes for a great time, you know.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
their network expands widely, and I made that pretty apparent in a few of the first sessions in your guys' contact with them.
So we got to a point where, you know, we started talking about like the map and placement of land masses. How did you go about? Because there's a number of different resources with all this stuff, books for that give you prompts and ideas for, you know, tavern names and what kind of people your party's going to run into in a seedy back alley in the red light district of your biggest city. You know, what kind of person you're going to run into in a tavern, or even along the lines of signature drinks at your tavern and signature meals at your inns. There's plenty of resources out there, books wise, to help you out with that. There's also a number of resources in world map making.
Yes. It truly is. I mean, more than I can.
There's a lot out there. There's a few that we've used. What have you used? What did you use to create your world map of Palisadria?
I created Palisadria along with many of the battle maps, all the battle maps so far, with a program called Incarnate. It's INKARNATE.
Yep.
Which has a wide variety. I mean, you can break it down into world maps, battle maps, and watercolor maps, which is what I use with Tirana.
Okay.
I use the watercolor map.
Cool.
Very easy to really just start punching things in, making your rivers and your city borders, and it makes it very easy for city building. I don't prefer it very much so for battle map building. I like my battle maps to be a little bit more intricate, especially for when you guys loot afterwards, for where you want to hide. But
we get into battle maps, and I think in a different one, because there's a lot of cool
there's
stuff
a lot
out
of stuff,
there.
and there's a lot of other
I got
programs.
I got a new one.
He did find a great one.
It is super cool.
We will touch base. Maybe do something on that later, but for now,
figure it out. There's a bunch of other ways to create maps that I was using. I've actually seen people, they would pour just a bunch of rice on a sheet of paper.
Yeah, I've seen that
and
too.
then take a micron pen and trace around the main masses of piles of rice and, swipe it all off. And then you get a really cool sort of...
and it really randomizes your world build. I mean, if you don't have something directly in mind of what you want your world to look like, phenomenal idea.
Yeah, and you could sprinkle that rice over and, shape it in any which way and get really cool islands and inlet effects and, peninsulas and all that stuff. And another thing I did too that was actually pretty, it worked out so well. I took photos of melting snow this spring in random piles across town. I'd stop and see. Really
it's randomized in nature the same way that masses.
And then you take
formed.
a bird's eye view photo of it, and then
awesome
trace that out. And I got a really, really cool map set up. It was oddly very reminiscent of the European continent. But, there's plenty of, spaces where the snow had melted from footprints and things along those lines.
Even more, this leans even more towards you do not need to know geology to make a fantasy map.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
It requires melting snow, rice, and a bit of imagination.
And what you could do with the snow ones too is use those higher areas as mountain ranges in your map.
And your mountain ranges don't have to be secluded to wintry regions or plains regions. I mean,
dry, hot volcano land.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Volcano can pop up anywhere.
Anywhere. So, I think this is great for everything we've come across in this instance, this episode right here.
Yeah.
Is great for homebrew, right? Now, what about the home brewer that may be pinched for time?
I think a great resource could be obviously what we spoke about in a few episodes ago is taking some notes from actual
modules and things like that.
Yes, that lost for words. Taking a couple notes from modules, looking through books. I mean, it's easy enough to piece together things. As well as the program we spoke about before, Incarnate, you can look through their Explorer page and find a lot of, pre-built worlds that people are willing to allow you to clone and add a little bit of sprinkle in on your own time. Or if you don't even have that much time, they have whole world maps built for you.
Yeah.
That can really, if you're a person that you're very dedicated to your work and you don't have a lot of time, but you love to play D&D and you really want to play with your friends and you're the only person that's really able to DM, that's a great resource. It really is.
I think there's a couple other ways to go about it too. If rice is too much and
there's a lot of details you have to add in with that too. I mean, you really have to build in where you want to make your consonants. That makes your general outline.
You could take the map of the U.S., right? Take the map of the U.S. and mush a couple state borders together and just trace around that.
Just make sure it's not like
Kentucky.
Nevada and Kansas. That'll make a rectangle.
Colorado too.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
You could do something like that, or you could even take source maps from the D&D Forgotten Realms or whatever tabletop game you're playing, and whether it be D&D, Pathfinder, what have you, and just reskin it.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I like this setup, I like this continent, and I just want to change the names of everything.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to live true to everything you find on those pages. I mean, you can make up your own. You can rename them. You can remap them. I think the best part about it is being able to take them as an outline.
Yeah, salt marsh doesn't have to be salt marsh. It could be Murkwater
Basin.
Boat land.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. It's just a DM has the ability to build his entire world and take that into account when you start thinking about world building, because it doesn't have to be the same name that you found in a Google picture image.
And if you're doing this and you're not telling your party how you're doing it, they don't know.
Any the better.
They don't know. They think you're as creative as fuck.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God.
They show up excited.
Yeah.
Just to play. Just like, I'm a player in your campaign, you're a player in my campaign. I don't do any research to try to figure shit out because I'm more concerned about trying to figure out what's going on in mine.
Yeah. So, that said, I mean, world building can be as easy as that. This is pretty basic. You can make it
world
as
building.
difficult as you want.
I mean, if you really want us to go into a very in-depth portion of world building, we can. I don't really see any issue with that if you do.
No. Let us know if there's any other really cool resources that we might not know about.
Let us know. We can
drop it down there.
Campaigns.
Drop it down there.
But yeah, just comment. Let us know if that's something you'd like to see us do as far as our previous episode with background.
Yep.
Or any other episodes or this one with world building. We're totally willing to help you guys.
Yeah. And you might be able to help us. Let's learn.
Mutual exchange, a symbiotic relationship.
Learn and share together and grow and flourish and blossom That said, we're done. We're done, right?
We've covered it.
I think we covered it.
We did it.
So all our social media is down in the description there. Do us a favor. Check us out. We're not going to bombard you with all the information because it's there.
But we thoroughly appreciate it.
Yeah, check it out. Peace out,
Have a
butt
good
trout.
night.
Okay. And here we go. And the one, and the two, and the skiddly diddly doo.